Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have a great day because today is our very first opportunity to take a look at something from the Ancestors line. This is a line of figures that I think are awesome, something I've been really looking forward to, not only getting into my collection, but having an opportunity to display on my channel here because it's a line that I feel like is a little bit overlooked and people don't realize just how good they are. And hopefully with this review here, that will definitely change the mind of many. And you guys will take an opportunity to head on over to the Ancestors line and place an order for some of their unbelievably beautiful figures. And the very first one that we are having the pleasure of taking a look at here on Andy's Dinosaur Reviews is their Edmontosaurus, and I can say with complete confidence that this is the best Edmontosaurus that I have in my collection. I have some really good ones, like you've got the Collect A, you've got the Safari LTD. None of those are as nice, in my opinion, as what we have here with this Edmontosaurus from the Ancestors line. It is just about as drop-dead gorgeous as it gets. A really beautiful sculpt, a fantastic paint job, and on top of everything, it's a really nice and really sizable figure. You can see here in my hands, it's definitely a very sizable version of an Edmontosaurus, and man, what a looker. Undoubtedly one of the most striking Edmontosaurus figures or dinosaur figures in general that I think I've ever seen. I absolutely love the greenish tones of this and the design that they have come up with. So unique. It's nothing like your standard dinosaur where it's just like stripes along the back and then, a random color or whatever. Like that is not what we have here. They have this really cool design. I love these like yellowish areas here on the side of the figure. Just a beautiful, really appealing looking paint job for an absolutely gorgeous sculpt. So let's go ahead, jump straight to a closer look at this right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Edmontosaurus, look at how beautiful that is. Like such a really nice, really peaceful looking, head sculpt for this dinosaur. Like the positioning of the head and everything and the mouth, nothing looks like he's concerned, doesn't look like he's being attacked by anything or anything crazy like that. Just a nice relaxed Edmontosaurus just walking around, maybe looking for something to eat. I absolutely love the appearance to the head sculpt of this figure. I think it's really appealing, the positioning of the body and the way that they've sculpted everything out. And you can see also, as far as the head sculpt goes, that we have some fantastic skin detail throughout, really nice scale detail, and some fantastic paintwork that really highlights that scale detail. I love the tones of green, and you can see we have numerous different tones of green here in the face of the Edmontosaurus, as well as a nice light coloration here for the lower jaw. We transition to a white, kind of like a white actually, with some slight hints of a light green. You can see the nostrils right there at the tip of the snout. You've also got a really nice beak here for our Edmontosaurus. If my camera would focus on it, you could see the beak looks great. The detailing within the beak also looks great. And you can also see some nice paintwork with some variations of lighter and darker shades of browns, which I think looks nice to have some color variation in the beak. If you look up here on the top of the head, you have some really nice designing that runs along the top of the head with a black. Same deal that we have for the eye socket area, as we have like a mixture of black and browns that kind of border around the eye. You've got a really nicely painted eye in there as well. I love the tone of color that they've given it with a really nice light green. It looks great. As you move up here to the top of the head of our Edmontosaurus, you can see that crest up there on the top of the head. Again, that black kind of runs up along the top of the head, and then before it can overtake the entire crest, we have a really nice yellowish tone of color up there highlighting that crest with some black spots. Absolutely beautiful paint scheme again for the figure. As you move back here along the dinosaur, you can see the ear right there, and you can also see some nice creasing here in the skin of the neck as the dinosaur has its head turned to the right quite sharply. You would definitely see some nice creasing there in the neck. You also get some speckling picking up. Really smooth transition from the green there to the white on the underside. And you can see some more really nice detailing here to the underside as well as the throat. I like that nothing is overly defined. Nothing looks like it's shrink wrapped by any means, just a nice big bulky Edmontosaurus. You can see that we get some ridges picking up here on the back of the neck that run down along the course of the dinosaur. And as we get to the lower part of the neck, we start to have this really cool striping that leaks down and stripes down from those ridges here running along the spinal column. And I like that we have like this nice dark coloration, but in between you have the greens, so you have a mixture of like blacks and greens running along those ridges. You can also see again some beautiful detailing here in the stomach region as far as the skin texture goes, and that design looks so cool with the way it stripes down here. And then we have these really neat yellow areas here that are also kind of outlined with that black. You can see some beautiful skin wrinkles and skin folds again, showing the movement of the rear leg right there in the stomach region, as well as some nice bulkiness to the stomach of the dinosaur, making it look nice and healthy. You've got the shoulder blade there protruding from the skin a little bit, some more of those speckles as you lead down into the front limb. You've got some really nice stripes again that pick up and design down the course of the leg with that really nice light green, and it just plays off of each other so nicely. Just really striking look for the figure. As you move down into the foot of the dinosaur, it's overtaken completely with a mixture of that black and brown. You've got a nice dark brown for the paint of the nails, and it looks really, really good. You can also see that the underside sports a nice white coloration again. You can see how the transition right there occurs between the green, the black, and the white. Really nice transitioning. And then again, as you come back up here, you've got the hip bone up here, but yet again, not overly defined or anything, by no means looking shrink wrapped. As you move down here into the thigh, the muscle definition is very nicely sculpted out, and you've also got some slight color variation as you have different tones of greens in that area as well as some browns. And that's one thing that you'll see through the course of the figure is like some really slight alternate shades of color, like really, really subtle coloration to the figure. And that's something I didn't pick up on the promotional images, so it's really cool to see how nice it looks in hand. Something that again, it's one of those figures you really need to see in person. And in fact, you could see it right there in the head, like right there all around the eye and the upper part of the head. There's like a nice mixture of like an orangish brown that shows up and meshes beautifully with the green. Just some really slight color variation like that really impresses me. You can see more really nice skin detail here as the tail again is pulling the skin off of the thigh right there. Again, showing how the tail and the thigh are moving, stretching the skin and everything right there. Very nice detailing. As you move down the course of the leg, you've got a nice calf muscle right there. Really nice detailing in the calf. You can see as far as the scale detail goes, super, super nice looking. And again, you have more of those stripes running down the course of the leg as you lead down into the foot. An absolutely beautiful looking foot sculpt for the rear leg, and you've got some more really nicely painted nails. And I love how on the hoof-like area here on the front you have like that dark brown, but then here on the back you have a very similar tone of color, but it honestly almost looks like a slightly different shade of color. But I'm not sure if that's just the way it's applied or not, but it definitely makes some really cool color difference for the figure. And then as we lead back up here into the tail, you can see again more of that skin stretching here off of the tail, more of that really subtle color variation, as again I can see almost like some light differences in greens as well as some slight orangish browns. The color and paint application of this is so incredibly nice. And as you move out the length of the tail, you can see how those stripes continue to move along the figure. And as you move out the length of the tail, you continue to see how those stripes continue to move along the course of the figure. You've got the ridges running along the back of the tail here. It leads out to a really nice curve and a nice tip to the tail right there. Again, the scale detail continues to look super nice. And then here on the underside, you can see more creasing and everything in the skin of the underside of the dinosaur, as well as some incredibly vibrant scale detail that really pops down here with that light coloration. You've got a cloaca present, and you again have some more really nice paintwork as you have like some light grays as well as some nice off-whites, almost like a tone of color I use to paint with at times. It's called vanilla ice cream. It almost looks like that as far as the tone of color used for the underside. You can see again some of the girth there in the stomach region. I love the different style of scale detail here for the underside of the figure compared to what you see elsewhere. And then if we bring the figure up here, we take a look at the opposing side. Again, we did look at this head sculpt on this side earlier. It looks great over here. As you lead down into the neck, you see a lot less creasing in the neck because the dinosaur has its head facing away from us, so it would definitely be stretching the skin a lot more so than bunching it up like we initially saw on the other side. And you can get a good idea of how large the scales and everything are in the neck region over here, something you didn't really see too well on the opposing side due to the turn in the neck. You can really pick out how nice that looks over here. And again, just so much variation as far as the scales go. And you can see more of those speckles beginning to pick up as we lead down the neck. The stripes begin to pick up here running along the back. And then we've got the shoulder blade again nicely defined there. We've got the leg over here that's a little bit more forward than the leg on the opposing side. Again, it looks absolutely beautiful. I love the design that they've come up with for this figure as far as like the really nice light greens and the striping and everything. Gorgeous looking foot sculpt yet again. Just such an incredibly appealing looking figure. And then as you move back here along the stomach region, again, you see more of the skin stretching. Again, the skin detail of this figure is extremely nicely done when it comes to skin wrinkles, stretching, folding, all of that stuff, showing the movement off beautifully. You've got more of those areas of yellow here, as well as more of those dark stripes leading down the leg. Very nice. Again, hip bone right here that, yet again, is not super elaborated, but it's definitely there. You have an exceptionally large thigh muscle, exactly what you would see on a dinosaur this large, and you can see more skin wrinkles and everything moving down the course of the leg, more of the, again, darker shades of like browns and greens and stuff showing up, which looks absolutely beautiful. You've got the calf muscle again right there, very nice stripes down the course of the leg, and you've got the foot sculpt yet again like we saw on the initial side, nice detailing in the ankle and everything. And the legs are also in slightly different positions, but not too far off from what we saw on the opposing side. And then we lead up here into the tail. Again, you see more of the skin stretching and wrinkling and everything showing off the movement of the tail. As you lead out the length of the tail, you again have that really nice curve with those beautiful stripes running the rest of the tail. So as far as an Edmontosaurus goes, unquestionably my new favorite Edmontosaurus in my collection. What a beautiful figure to be my introduction to the Ancestors line. Just an absolutely gorgeous looking Edmontosaurus. The balance of the figure is also really nicely done. Being in a quadrupedal positioning, you wouldn't really expect too much other than a nice balance, but it does stand really nicely, just in case you were wondering. As far as a size goes, it's a pretty big figure. For a length from the tail to the snout, you're looking at right around 13.5 inches, or about 34, maybe around 34.5 centimeters. That's not an exact measurement because the tail has a nice curve to it, so it's a little hard to get a perfect measurement. As far as a height goes, the highest point I think is the back. The head's a little bit lower. You're looking at just shy of 4 3/4 inches, or around 12 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line in comparison to our Ancestors models, Edmontosaurus, and you can definitely see what I was saying as far as a very impressive size on this figure. Definitely a very, very large Edmontosaurus, which is a species that is pretty darn big, so you would expect the model to be large, but you can definitely, I think, see that in comparison to these figures. And for a second comparison, we have the brand new 2022 Collect Day Edmontosaurus in comparison to the Ancestors models version, and you can see that size-wise, again, they're very similar. Overall, if we get up above, you could definitely see a pretty similar size, although I think the Ancestors models version is a little bit larger, but even though the Collect Day version is absolutely gorgeous, I definitely prefer the Ancestors line version. And then for yet another comparison, there is the Safari LTD Edmontosaurus next to the Ancestors line version, and you could see a massive difference in size between these two. And yet again, I do really love that Edmontosaurus from Safari LTD, but in my opinion, the Ancestors line version wins this round yet again. And then as far as just a few random comparisons, there is the Schleich Diabloceratops figure. I'm just going to bring in a few randoms to kind of give you an idea of the size, especially with this being a newer line that you're probably not too familiar with. There is a Takara Tomy Stegosaurus. We've also got a Collect Day Dimetrodon there in comparison to our Edmontosaurus. And then for one final comparison, we have the PNSO Syntausaurus in comparison to our Ancestors line Edmontosaurus, yet again showing you how much larger it is, but also showing you that it is just as beautiful as that Syntausaurus, which is one of my favorite PNSO models of all time. Really showing you again how impressive the Edmontosaurus from Ancestors line is. So this brand new Ancestors line Edmontosaurus is just an absolutely drop-dead gorgeous version of an Edmontosaurus, and like I stated earlier, my new favorite Edmontosaurus in my collection, and what a beautiful figure to be introduced to the Ancestors line. They do have a few other figures out prior to this, but this is my first addition to my collection from the Ancestors line, and to say I'm impressed would be an understatement. The sculpt of this is just as incredible as it honestly can get. The fine detailing is beautiful. The overall appearance to the figure, the pose, everything is just absolutely awesome on this Edmontosaurus, and it's without question one of the most striking dinosaur figures I've ever seen. They have come up with a really, really nice looking, very appealing color scheme for the model, and it's perfectly applied in the absolute most natural way possible. The tones of color used are also extremely appealing to look at. I really love the nice light tones of green, and I also love how they've made a nice mixture of like lighter and darker greens, as well as some variations of like orangish browns and even darker browns through the course of the figure, making it have a very realistic and lifelike appearance, so much nicer than just applying like 2 or 3, generic tones of color to it and calling it a day. They've given it some really nice depth to the paint job, and it looks so much more lifelike and so incredibly realistic with how nicely they've painted this figure overall. And on top of everything, it has a very impressive size. Being an Edmontosaurus, you would expect it to have a pretty darn good size. It definitely does. I think that comparison there that we had shown you just before with the other Edmontosaurus figures that are currently out should have shown you that. So on top of the incredible sculpt, the incredible paint job, we also have an incredibly nice size. So as a whole, this is an insanely awesome release, and one that I can say I highly recommend you guys picking up. So if you are interested in this model, I will include a link in the description to the Ancestors line on Instagram, where you can of course follow along with everything that they have going on, stay up to date with all of their releases, and order yourself this Edmontosaurus as well as any of their other models that are currently available. So make sure you check that link in the description, head on over there and place an order for this beautiful Edmontosaurus. And also, if you do not have social media, you can contact me, I can contact them for you, so you can get your hands on this fantastic Edmontosaurus. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.